The ongoing Canada-U.S. trade war has sparked numerous conversations nationwide, especially with Trump's August 1st deadline looming, one that would see a 35% tariff applied to Canadian goods. Prime Minister Mark Carney stated recently that a deal with no tariffs is unlikely. Here to break down what it all means is the U of M's Associate Head of Economics and Society, Fletcher Baragar. Good morning, Fletcher.
Good morning.
So do you have any predictions? It's so soon. We've been talking about it for a while. Do you have any predictions for how this will shake out tomorrow?
Well, I think one of the characteristics of the new Trump administration in Washington is that it's been very difficult to make any sort of predictions, or at least to make any predictions that prove to be accurate. And I think even though we're right at the 11th hour and right before that August 1st deadline, again, I sort of feel that it's a bit of a fool's game. You're really taking a shot in the dark to try to predict just exactly what might happen. The August 1st deadline has been one that's been referred to both by the United States and of course, by Prime Minister Carney. But we've seen many instances of where there's been the deadlines have been shifted or stayed, or negotiations go on. And it could be a very eventful 24 hours, so it's really hard to tell.
No kidding. What are the potential economic consequences for Canada with a 35% tariff?
Well, I think one thing that just in general really concerns businesses as well as policymakers and consumers and tourists and all sorts of people involved in the economy one way or another is to try to get a reading of just what the economic environment is. What is the structure of prices? What is available? What is not available? And then especially for huge investments or long-term investments or making longer-term plans, we're trying to sort of anticipate what it's going to be like 6 months from now, a year from now, 18 months from now. And that's been a really topsy-turvy sort of situation ever since the U.S. election in November of last year. And so I think one thing that Canada really wants is to provide some degree of certainty. What exactly is the economic landscape going to be? How permanent is it going to be? What is the structures? And then on that basis, at least Canadian governments, Canadian households, and certainly Canadian businesses could then try to plan accordingly. I'll just point out that back in the late 1980s, when there was discussions about the free trade agreement, which was ultimately signed in 88 and 89, again, part of what was driving Canada for the free trade agreement was to try to have some degree of certainty and some elements that would be sort of fixed so that Canadians didn't feel that they were always vulnerable or exposed to the whims or the political currents that could be shifting quite dramatically in the United States. When it was signed, it was thought, well, on that score, that was an advantage for Canada. And yet, here we are again, except even more uncertainty and far greater consequences.
Fletcher, any final thoughts before we're out of time?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if there was going to be another delay before August the 1st. I think what's more important, I mean, certainly everybody's sort of waiting to see the smoke clear and see what the landscape will be like. But I think my sense, at least from trying to read between the lines of the pronouncements from the Canadian government, is that it's important to get a good and a workable agreement, and those things are complex. I think maybe taking a bit longer time rather than sort of meeting what I would call an artificially imposed deadline would be a wiser strategic move.